It's another spooky video. We only have one more left after this, you guys. It's almost over. I may still do some of the looks that I had planned for October and November, just because moving has really kicked my butt. But I'm gonna try and get everything back on track. Let me know how we're feeling about the lights, guys. Like, I've been kind of messing around. This is the first video that I've filmed since last week's School Ready With Me, so I'm still kind of figuring things out. So just let me know if this is a little better or not. I feel like it's maybe a little bit better. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. Okay. So anyway, let's get into this. Now, I did kind of have this idea. I'm going to leave a poll down below. There's like, YouTube is trying something. So I'm going to see if I can leave a poll down below. If not, I'll just do it as a community post. Okay. But, I had an idea. I have like the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know if you guys have been watching The Fall of the House of Usher, but I have been geeking out because I am a Poe girly and I love it. I love that like every single like kid's like death is like tied into like a different like Poe short story. So I thought it would be kind of fun on Halloweeny if I did a video of me reading either like a short story or a poem of Edgar Allan Poe. So I'm gonna do a poll, see if you guys want that, and if you do, like, do we want a short story or do we want a poem? Just let me know, okay? Without further ado, let's get spooky. Also, I gave myself a head start because liquid latex, okay? Don't judge me. Alright, let's get spooky. Vanessa never really believed in the whole cryptids thing. She had heard of, you know, the Jersey Devil and Chupacabra. She'd even heard of like a recent story of a guardian of the forest. She just didn't believe any of it. You know, she's an avid outdoorsy girl and she's never bumped into anything like what these stories describe anywhere. So anytime she was going to go into woods and they tried to warn her away saying, oh, you don't want to go there, the Chupacabra is going to get you. She would just scoff. I'm like, you know, there's probably just a very large owl breed or something that people are seeing. There's got to be some sort of logical explanation. And it's happened more than once. So she went into some woods where people had claimed that they had seen something strange. And she never saw anything at all. So, having never experienced anything, she kind of became the National Forest Service's like go-to person to go check out these claims because she was so good at figuring out what it actually was. And it did in fact turn out to be usually nothing at all. She could easily figure out exactly which, you know, lesser known breed of owl people were hearing in the woods. And some of them do have a very distinctive cry. And sometimes that required her to be camped out in the woods for several days just to try and really hear what it is the locals were hearing and, you know, figure out exactly what's going on. So she could really give them like an informed answer of, okay, you know, it's not the Jersey Devil, it's this type of owl or this type of bird. That Chupacabra you just thought was, you know, terrorizing everybody was actually a pack of coyotes that haven't had enough food source. You know, that sort of thing. So when a new assignment landed on her plate, she was more than willing to go check this out. Some kind of new cryptid that she had never heard of. They said this one kind of resembled like a cat, but it wasn't any kind of cat that they had seen in those parts before. It wasn't a mountain lion, it wasn't a cougar. They didn't know what it was, but it seemed like a cat, but also it was very lanky. And it had glowing yellow eyes and a very distinctive yowl that wasn't, a mountain lion or a cougar or anything that, they were used to. So they didn't know what it could be. Well, she knew enough about predatory cats to know that this definitely sounded like it was just some sort of run-of-the-mill, mountain lion, cougar, or whatever. Even though they said that it wasn't. She felt like she could prove that it was. So she packed up her bags and her backpack, her tent, everything that she would need. Got over to the area and was, ready to check it out. See what she could find. She felt pretty sure she was going to find nothing. Now the locals, they swore and swore and swore that this was definitely not nothing. It was something, and she needed to be careful. So they'd had multiple accounts of people going into these woods and getting scratched by this thing. And it's like there's venom in the claws or something. Like the scratches immediately start getting infected. And it doesn't matter whether or not they use like antiseptic or not. She'd never heard of a cat's claws having venom in them. So she's like, okay, that's gotta be some kind of tall tale that they've attached to this thing or something. Like there's no way that's what's actually going on here. There's got to be some sort of logical explanation. She tracked down some of the eyewitnesses, a few of which who had scratches on them that looked rather nasty. And she asked them, okay, like, what did you hear? What did you see? Well, they said that they were out in the woods. They were going to be camping for like 3 days. And the first night was when they heard the yowl. It was a bone-chilling, strange meow that they'd never heard before in their life. They had heard mountain lions before, and this was definitely not a mountain lion. But they said the yowl sounded like it was really far away, so they weren't really that worried about it. But the second night, they heard the yell again. But then it sounded like it got closer and closer. Then at the very end of the night, they saw eyes staring at them from the darkness. Glowing yellow eyes. They looked like they had to be about a $50 size eyes. Well, she knew cougar's eyes aren't that big. Maybe a quarter size, but not $50. Whatever this was, it had huge eyes. So it had to be some sort of night predator. Well, strange yowls aside, one consistent thing that she noticed in everyone's report was it never attacked until the third day. It would get close, it would yell, you could see its eyes, but it would never come close enough to anyone's camps to actually swipe at them or anything until the third day. Now, she knew there were plenty of predatory cats that, you know, they play a long game. And they'll go long lengths to track down a prey. And she figured that's exactly what they were dealing with. And maybe it was just a giant mountain lion. Well, having interviewed everyone, she went off into the woods to see if she could track down this elusive cat demon. Because she felt like it had to just be a large mountain lion, and everyone's just making way too big of a deal out of this. And she felt like she had to go in pretty far before she started seeing any kind of signs of predatory hunting or anything. But eventually she did find the carcass of a deer, a rather large deer. Because she could tell from the bite marks that it was a large predator that took it down. And it seemed to be some kind of solitary predator. However, the kill was really old, so she was like, okay, it's probably moved on from this. We gotta keep going. And she kind of started losing daylight, so she's like, okay, I'm gonna have to find some kind of clearing and make camp. So she found a spot that would do and started setting up her tent. Made a log of what she'd found on the deer. Made herself something to eat and got ready to go to bed. Sometime towards the middle of the night, she heard a bone-chilling yowl. It sounded like a mountain lion, but it also kind of just sounded very distorted. And she just was not sure what it could have been. But having finally heard it in person, she understood why it had everybody spooked. But again, she noted that she didn't hear any return yowls. It wasn't communicating to anybody. So whatever the creature is, it's here on its own. Well, daylight hits, and she decides to go out and start kind of investigating to see just, you know, how close that thing could have been to her camp. She couldn't find any kind of footprints or anything, so it had to have been a ways away. And she couldn't find any other evidence of the animal. She didn't find any kills or anything. So she felt like the yowl that she heard had to have been like a territorial thing. And that it was meant as a warning to her. Well, that night, once again, she, you know, made her little notes about the predatory behavior, territorial behavior, the fact that she didn't find any kills, got ready for bed. She heard the yowl again that night. And she remembered that everyone said that usually the second night it got close enough that you could see its eyes. So she went outside to see if she could see glowing yellow eyes the size of a $50, and sure enough, just outside of her encampment, she saw them. It didn't pace or anything like that. It just observed her with its unwavering, glowing yellow eyes. It wasn't even like, you know, when you shine a flashlight on an animal's eyes that like reflective. It wasn't that. It was like the eyes themselves were glowing. She thought people were just exaggerating, but she was seeing it for herself, and they weren't wrong. Well, she knew the next night was supposed to be the night that it allegedly would try to scratch her. That allegedly these scratches were super poisonous and would get immediately infected. Now, did she believe that this cat actually had like venom in its claws? No. It just seems like it's getting infected super fast because, you know, it's killing prey and letting it sit there in the sun. There's all kinds of bacteria and stuff growing, and like people are just kind of washing it off real quick out in the woods without proper, you know, soap and water and heat and all that. So that's what she thought was happening there. While her goal was to not get scratched by the cat, she did want to see what was going on with that. She wanted to test to see like what the bacteria was, like what was going on there, what's the story. So that night, once again, she heard the yell, knew that her special kitty friend was there, and, you know, thought she was ready. She's like, okay, you know, here it is. It's gonna try and scratch me. I just have to be a little bit faster than the cat. So she unzipped her tent, and she'd been listening, you know, the whole time to see if there was any sounds of the cat approaching, and it was just complete and utter silence out there. So she unzips her tent. Before she even knew it was happening, she felt it. Just a slap across her face, and then an instant burning. It was like something seared into her flesh. She couldn't get a good look at what the animal was, but it was definitely a cat, and it was definitely fast. Once it had swiped her, it went back to the edge of the clearing like it was waiting. Waiting for the poison to do its job. Well, she had medical grade antiseptics, the kind of things that they use when they're doing field work, when there's some sort of major catastrophe and they've got to do some kind of crazy operation right there in an unclean environment. So she immediately zipped the tent back up, and started applying this antiseptic. She opened her phone up and looked at her face using the camera to see what kind of state it was in, and she could already see that the skin was infected and like there were, you know, veins showing, like it was like blood poisoning. Well, the next day she was incredibly dizzy. She barely had enough strength to pack up the tent. But she managed to do it. She managed to get everything packed up. She got out of the woods, went into town, immediately went to the hospital, put her on a strong dose of antibiotics. They asked her what all had happened, and she said it was exactly how you guys described it. It stalked me, the yowling, everything. She told them, she's like, I don't know what I would have done if I had stayed out there one more day. And they all said, oh, no. No one's ever made it a fourth day and lived to tell about it. We find bodies from time to time, but once you've been scratched, unless you immediately get medical help, there's no survivors. Well, for the first time in as long as she can remember, she had to file a report. Unconcluded. How much just stay away from the woods, if I were you. Especially if there's strange yowling. Talk of a devil cat. Meow. Is this? I don't know, you guys. Okay, the next School Ready with me is one that I had planned. Like, it was like the first one that I planned out. It's going to be very involved, but I'm very excited for it. But I kind of ran out of ideas, and so I just sort of made this one up, like, today. So, hope you enjoyed. All right, let me know if you want to do a little Edgar Allan Poe reading on Halloween. Ooh. And this was this. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Love you, bye. Ooh.